Hello, today we're going to be talking about writing synopsises or synopsisy, and I'm not sure what the plural is. I've only ever seen a synopsis, but anyway, and book blurbs. These are both incredibly important if you're doing querying of any kind. A synopsis is something that publishers and agents require when you submit to them. It's basically a complete summary of your story. Whereas a book blurb is a paragraph or two that lets the reader know what the book is about and lures them in, giving them a taste of the story. So they're both things that you will need when querying, but not necessarily the same thing. Actually, they're drastically different when I'm going to tell you how to write them. I also wanted to mention that we have another writing contest available from June 1st, so a couple days ago, to July 31st of 2024. We will be doing a writing contest. All entries will be due by July 31st. The writing prompt is write about an adventure in a library. So it can be this library, it can be a fantasy library, it can be a haunted library, whatever you'd like, as long as it is an adventure in a library somewhere. Feel free to let your mind go crazy with that. It has to be a minimum of 1,500 words, but it cannot be more than 6,000 words. Feel free to come pick up an entry form at the desk. Alright, so first we're going to talk about a synopsis. The synopsis is the complete summary of your story. A lot of agents and publishers ask for this before they ask for a full manuscript. Not all of them ask for it, but most of them do, because that way they can look at it, and if they see any plot holes immediately, then they're going to go, nope, gonna axe that. Which means this is also a great opportunity for you to notice if there are any holes in your plot or any issues with your characters, because they will show themselves very easily in your synopsis if you do it properly. So typically a synopsis is between 500 to 800 words. Generally, I would say lean more towards 500 words than 800 words, because most agents and publishers will ask for 500 words or less. Only some publishers and agents ask for 800 words or more. Very, very rare. So as a result, if you try to stick more to 500 words, that will make it easier for you to adjust it according to what people are asking for. And if they say 800 words or more, it's okay to do less than that. That is just a limit that they suggest. Typically, though, 500 words is what people are going to ask for, so try to do 500 words or less. In your synopsis, what you're wanting to do is introduce your characters in a very simple and succinct way. So, for example, if character A wants to grow up to be a zoologist, you say, character A wants to be a zoologist. Done. If you want, you can flavor it and spice it a little bit by saying, like, character A aspires to be a zoologist, but the inability to get a scholarship or funds for college is holding her back, or whatever. That's cool, you can totally do that, but just keep in mind, again, you are trying to keep this close to 500 words. So it's okay to not really have it be super embellished. Only embellish if you have the word space to embellish. You want to introduce all your characters, and when I say all your characters, I do put one caveat. All of your main characters and super important side characters. And when I say super important, I mean they show up in every single chapter or almost every single chapter. If it's a side character that shows up once or twice, no. You only want to include main characters and side characters that are almost always present. Otherwise, axe it. The reason why is because it's going to be even harder to make your synopsis the word length that it needs to be. And it's going to make the editor/publisher think that maybe you are an overwriter, which is not a good thing. When they see the word count is over already, or under alternatively, they can think one of two things. If you have so many characters and you are under what the expected word count is, they immediately are going to think this person is rushing their plot super, super bad. Or alternatively, this person needs to get rid of some of these characters and doesn't know that they need to get rid of them. If you're over the expected word count for your genre/age group, then they will think, oh, this person's an overwriter. 90% of this book needs to be deleted. And as a result, again, that is another way to get yourself straight into the rejection pile. I would highly recommend keeping it very simplistic. Main characters and side characters that show up in every chapter or almost every chapter only. Next, I would say use the 7-point plot structure. You can just Google 7-point plot structure and images, and it pops up. It says by Dan Wells, but Dan Wells admits that he did not get it from there, but everyone thinks it's him anyway. The 7-point plot structure is really nice because if you write one sentence for each plot point, you will have a perfect synopsis, and almost always you will have the perfect amount of words for your synopsis as well. It's almost always exactly on target if you use the 7-point plot structure. I've tried using Save the Cat, too many words, too much detail. I've tried using the snowflake plot method, too little detail, too vague. The 7-point plot structure is pretty much perfectly on cue. It's kind of like Goldilocks. Save the Cat is an amazing plot structure, but it's not great for a synopsis. Snowflake method is a great plot structure, but it's not great for a synopsis again. 7-point is perfect for a synopsis. It is just right there. That being said, you can add other details that you feel are necessary if you have the word space to do so. If you finish introducing your characters and doing your 7-point plot structure, and you notice that you have some words left, feel free to embellish a few details. Feel free to make it spice it up a little bit, make it a little bit more interesting to read. But if you finish introducing your characters and doing the 7-point plot structure and you realize that you are over 800 words or even over 500 words, I would say try not to embellish. Try to leave it exactly as is, because you definitely don't want to be over 800 words, and you probably don't want to be over 500 words just because there are so many that say 500 or less that then trying to cut stuff back out is going to be really, really hard. So if you're over 500 words already by introducing your characters and the plot structure alone, just leave it. Then you can try to figure out how to more concisely word things to get it to be 500. You don't have to have it 500, but most people will ask for 500 or less, so it's good to aim for that. As far as the book blurb, goes, this is an entirely different beast. It seems similar because you're telling them about the book, right? But the difference is, one, you're telling them about the entire book in great summarized detail, basically. You're telling them the entire plot plus the characters. That's a lot of detail. Whereas the book blurb is a paragraph, sometimes two, that helps the reader know about the book and lure them into reading it. That means that book blurbs are even shorter than synopsises. Book blurbs are generally between 50 to 150 words, sometimes 200, but that is very rare. That is more typical of classical novels because that was more of a thing back then. Nowadays, 50 to 150 words, just a teeny tiny little bit, is more the goal that you're wanting to go for. Hook them in with the characters. Hook them in with a tiny detail about the characters. Hook them in with a little flavor of how you write. Give it a little bit of the same writing style as you. Give it a little bit of that flair that says you. But don't go over the word count, so be careful. If you're one of those super poetic writers, be careful. Maybe just take a quote or two or a little scene that might intrigue them, something like that instead. You also want to then delve a little bit deeper into the plot by revealing the struggle. You don't want to say, so-and-so is the bad guy. But you do want to say, for instance, if it's a murder mystery, you want to say, so-and-so is minding her own business in her antique shop when she finds a skeletonized hand in one of the antiques that she recently bought, and realize that this is a human hand and probably a murder victim. That definitely shows us what the plot is, what the intrigue is. Then if you have further and you're like, and she learns that it's the town sheriff or something like that, that's cool. But don't give away any plot twists or spoilers or anything like that. Just give us what the most intense bit is. So for example, another great one, if you're doing like a romance novel, is kind of saying like, oh, well, he needs to, like, this is a great example for The Bookworm's Fake Boyfriend. It's a novel by Eloise Estes, and it is fantastic. I would recommend going and reading it. But basically, their book blurb is that he desperately needs a fake girlfriend to impress his family at the family reunion, and she wants a fake boyfriend to impress her friends at this event that she's going to go to, and so as a result they both agree to fake date. But what happens when, fake dating becomes real dating? that kind of thing. It makes it so that you're intrigued, that you kind of know a basic bit about it. You can even go a little bit more in detail, like I think they mentioned that she's a librarian on the back of it. And that he was a popular boy in high school. I think they mentioned both of those details, and so like it makes you gives you a little bit about the character, a little bit about the plot, makes it a little bit more intriguing and intense. It makes you want to pick up the book and continue reading it, which is the goal of the book blurb. I would highly recommend leaving it off on a semi-cliffhanger, or at very least giving them like a will they continue or will they break apart, or leaving it on a question, or very least saying what will happen when the whole world is threatened, all these kinds of things help to make it more interesting and more intense and exciting, and it makes the reader want to pick up the book. The goal of the synopsis is to inform the agent and the publisher about your novel's plot and characters. The goal of a book blurb is to get your readers to pick up your book. It's also the goal to put a part of your book blurb in your query letter typically, because this helps get the editor/agent to want to read it as well. If you have any other questions about book blurbs or synopsises, please let me know. But otherwise, that is what I have to say for today. I highly recommend also looking at some synopsises online and looking at some book blurbs online. Look at some of your favorite books. Look at the back and see if they have a book blurb. Some don't anymore. Some just have quotes. But if they have a good book blurb, check it out, especially if it's in your same genre and age category, because they are different depending on the genre and age category that you're in. So you're going to want to make sure you tilt it to match that genre and age category. All right. Bye.